Everyone, welcome back. It's Melanie, your She Shed Scrapper. So today I am back with a 2-page layout using the One Fall Day collection from Bella Blvd. This layout is actually going to feature quite a few pattern papers. So I really had to be strategic in how I used the patterns. I decided to use this green plaid for my background, but then I have how many photos? 5 photos. So I am going to have kind of 4 by 6 across the page, and then one small one that I will kind of add to the bottom at a diagonal there. I did go ahead and matte my photos in white, but then decided, because I am going to add 2 more pattern papers behind my photos, that I really needed to figure out what size green matte, I will call it, I guess, I was going to use. And so I cut that first so that I could have a good idea of how to cut the other 2 pattern papers. So the green matte is actually going to be a matte for my pattern papers. I wanted a way to separate the patterns in the middle of the layout from the plaid on the outside of the layout. And so I decided to use that green cardstock as a matte and kind of as a separation piece. So now that I have the size of the green paper, I then went ahead and cut the other 2 patterns, making sure that I had a border of green along the 3 sides. I only did 3 because I wanted it to look like it goes all the way across the page onto page 2. So once I did this, I obviously kept them longer. I tend to do that because it's easier for me to cut off the excess than to measure and cut. And I feel like I make less mistakes that way. So that is kind of why I will a lot of times just cut off the excess instead of measuring it. Because there's been several times I've measured and I thought I cut right, but I've cut short, and you cut short and you're kind of just sunk. So and that's one way I have fixed that problem. So now that I have this, I am going to decide to add this dark green all the way across, covering up the seam of those 2 pattern papers in the middle. And then I just brought it all the way to the far edge. It will also give me a good base, a good, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but for a title. You'll see how I use that to the left of these 2 photos to add my title there. So once I get these, I am going to add the 2 on page 2 as well. And I thought this one was going to take me forever just because of all the different pattern papers and all of this, but it really didn't take too much time. I'm really glad that I thought ahead to cut that green matted paper first. I feel like that really helped me in the long run cut some time down instead of really, I don't know, trying to do the math, I guess, if that makes sense. So I am going to matte this small photo as well. I love how the green plaid paper really picks up the green of the corn stalks. I don't know. I love the 2 photos of my son. The ones on the outsides, he's like modeling, I don't know. I think in the first one he was trying to be a scarecrow. And then the second one on the far right, I don't know, he's like modeling behind the corn stalk. And I think they're adorable, and I love those 2 photos. I did decide to bring in another color and actually matte that small photo in a red piece of paper. That was a scrap piece, and so that just worked out better for me. And then that kind of did allow me, I'm one of those scrapbookers, I think, that like really needs to have colors in multiple areas of my layout. So I have that little bit of red on page 2 at the bottom. And so I ended up using this red tag. It's the same plaid paper as my matte. So I added that behind my title on page 1. So I am doing Happy Fall for my title, and I guess that green paper I don't really use as a base, but it does make it look like, I guess it's not floating. I don't know. I feel like that dark green paper definitely helps with the title over there. I decided just to bring in other colors. There's a lot of different colors in that pattern leaf paper at the bottom. And so I did bring in some chipboard, that leaf over at the title cluster. I don't usually use a lot of animals, but I thought that fox was really cute, and it's for my son's album, and so the animals I felt like were appropriate. Decided to use photo corners because it's bright orange. It's kind of more plain up there, I guess. I chose a more plain. Really wanted to mix up the size of the patterns. And so I ended up doing that, and I figured that I would probably put my title at the top of the page is kind of why I chose the smaller pattern for the top, because there are dots in that orange paper. I don't know, just had a lot of fun with this one with the clusters. I used a lot of different leaves, so added one to the title, added two over to the top right cluster with a Chilly Days heart, and then saw this What a Day and just kind of thought it would be perfect. And so I am going to end up adding that to the top for a cluster, and added a sweater because it was a little chilly. And then another kind of leaf cluster. Saw this cute little squirrel, so I added that to the little fox and made a little scene over there. I guess I did struggle a little bit figuring out where to embellish. A lot of times with a 2-page layout, I tend to kind of embellish down, up, down, up. This one, though, kind of, sort of, I do the same thing. You'll see towards the end what I end up adding down on page 2, excuse me. So just really trying to piece these together. I am loving the colors of this collection, though. It is not normally what I tend to scrapbook with for fall. I really like the deep maroon, the hunter green, burnt orange, all of those. And yes, this has some of that, but it is a lot brighter than I'm used to. But for these photos of my boys, it's just been absolutely perfect. I'm so glad I stepped out of my comfort zone a little bit with this collection, and I'm loving the outcome. So for the top, I am going to add that What a Day. I did find another kind of leaf cluster, and so I am going to end up layering those up there to fill in some more of that space. And then I think at the end, I add some flares from Scrap and Happy Studio, but I think I am getting ahead of myself. I have these Bella Pops, and they had these little small epoxy circles, so I did add those to a couple of the clusters. I'm not getting ahead of myself. There's a mini flare from Scrap and Happy Studio. It's a little scarecrow, which I thought was perfect because I think that's what my son was doing in that first photo. And then I added kind of a raincoat, I think it is, to the cluster on page 2. Now we'll see what I decide to do towards the bottom of the layout. I am going to get out my journaling strips. I don't know. It's good to kind of journal the memories. A lot of my fall photos are similar year to year because we tend to go back to the same places. And so it's just nice to kind of go back and try to remember the specifics of each trip to this place. It wasn't this one, but one year we lost my son in this specific corn maze, actually. He was smart enough to go to the front and find a mom, and he knew my name, and the mom was calling out my name, and so I was able to find him that way. But yeah, it's just little memories like that I want to remember, that I think it's important to add journaling somewhere on the layout. I don't journal on all of my layouts, but there are certain ones that I definitely want to remember specifics, and so I will add journaling to those. So I did add a tree to that little cluster, the journaling strips at least, to add a little bit of color down there. But that's going to finish off this layout. I will link this collection down below for you guys if you are interested. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see you next time. Bye, guys.